Well, hello everyone. We are back again today at the privacy screening planting that I did in conjunction with the neighbors because I have finished it. And of course, by finished, I mean finished for now. We know these things change a little bit. I know perfectly well that if every single plant in this planting makes it through the winter, that would be amazing. So there might be some replacements and adjustments in the future, but hopefully not, and here's where we're at. And I want to just show you this because while you've seen many of these plants, and we're not going to cover the stuff I've already showed you, I had asked for some recommendations for the shrubs I should buy to sort of finish off the west end of this. And you guys came through in spades. There were so many amazing suggestions in the comments. And I'm going to link to that video. I'll put it up on the top of the screen here, but also in the description. And if you are looking for some shrubs for anything, you should read through the comments because it's a treasure trove of great information. Every shrub that I ended up adding here, I think with the exception of one, was mentioned in the comments and suggested by somebody. There were also some great suggestions in there that I absolutely would have gone for, but just weren't right. Like some things are not hardy in my zone. Some things require acidic soil, which I don't have. Some things I just know won't work. And then there's other things I didn't choose just because I don't care for them. And you know, that's how we all are, right? Is we like some plants and we don't like some plants. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that plant. It's just that we don't care for them. When we get down there, I will just show you. I ended up with way more variety than I thought I would, probably because you all influenced me so much that I just didn't want to miss out on some plants. But we'll talk about that when we get down there. I'm just going to make my way down. Again, we're not going to talk about the stuff we've already done because that was already in that video, but I will show you how things are growing in so far. Just to give you a perspective of where we are, here's our garage, which is on the east side of our property. Unfortunately, there's the porta potty for the construction work happening next door. I have planted I put an old obelisk there and I planted a purple hyacinth bean there. It's pretty small still, but I'm hoping maybe it can make a miraculous growth spurt here to sort of screen the porta potty for the summer. Okay, so you've seen the hemlock. It's looking great, still looking really beautiful. Very happy with that. I've been watching this one in particular very carefully because they have roots that are right at the surface. So it's real important for them to get, you know, enough water. They just don't have, not that anything here has put roots down very deep yet. The Kodiak red Villa is flowering, and boy, I'm really happy I went with the red. I was gonna go with orange, and then the orange plants at the nursery looked like garbage, so I went with red. And I actually really love the red. I think it's looking great. So these are new boxwoods. So 2 years ago, I discovered that I had boxwood blight in my yard. Fortunately, it was contained to the planting out by the road. I believe I bought those plants with boxwood blight, and they didn't develop it once they got here. I believe they came onto the property with it. I was actually the first homeowner in our county to have confirmed boxwood blight, and I think only the 5th in the state. So when I worked with, and there's a series of videos on this, what I did with it in case you're dealing with boxwood blight, but the state took this very seriously. I was immediately on the phone with the Department of Agriculture. I had to talk to them quite a bit. They gave me very specific instructions for how they asked that I handled it, which I followed. Which involved digging them out and burning them, and there were Tyvek suits. It was a whole thing. And so, of course, I've been very wary about bringing new boxwood onto the property because it's here. It lives in the soil. Now, it's over there, hopefully contained, and I will happily say I have not found it on anything else yet. But, you know, I'm not silly. I know that there's a really good chance it's going to show up on some other boxwoods here. So that was kind of a moment of like, am I even going to grow boxwood anymore? Because who wants to even invite that potential? But as you may know, there has been some real breeding improvements in terms of boxwood, because boxwoods are plagued with a lot of issues, blight being one of them. And there are a couple of companies out there that have been working on developing blight-resistant varieties, and better boxwood is one of them. So they sent me these. I'm not even sure you can buy these yet. I'm not sure they're out on the market yet. They might just be coming out this fall. So they sent me some to grow, and I think partly because they knew I had boxwood blight on my property, so it's kind of a good test to see how this all goes. So just to be clear, every plant in this planting I purchased other than these boxwoods, which were sent to me. So this one that I chose, they have, I think, 4 different varieties, and they're all hardy down to zone 5. Some of these boxwood resistant varieties are only hardy down to 6. So it was important for me, obviously, to get one that's hardy in my zone. And the one that I chose is actually called Skylight. And Skylight grows, they say, 6 to 8 feet high and 3 to 4 feet wide. And they really recommend this one for like mass planting or hedge planting. I don't believe these will get that big here. I will be shocked if they get that big here, but we'll see. But I have planted them to accommodate that space. So these are tall skinnies, basically. Imagine sort of a pillar type of form. And I don't intend on formally pruning these. I will do some pruning, but we're not going to make these into perfect shapes. At least that's my intention at this point. And I do have these dotted throughout here. I've got them in groups of 3, and I think in one case we've got 1. But I wanted to tell you about those because you know, I think it makes sense that if you're planting boxwoods these days, as these new varieties come on the market, like I feel like it's kind of a no-brainer to buy one of these blight-resistant varieties, because in most areas blight is going to be a huge issue. Now there are other issues. There's box moth and there's all those things. And to my knowledge, these are not bred to be resistant to those things. I don't know that there's any boxwood that is, but at least if I can eliminate the blight portion of the situation, that would be really helpful. So better boxwoods are planted throughout here, and I've got 3 right here. They're tiny little balls right now, so we will see what happens. They do have sort of longer leaves than some of my other boxwoods do. Very shiny foliage though, and I actually don't know what the winter situation is going to be with these, if these are going to bronze out or not. We'll just keep an eye on them this winter. Where is this? Everything here we've talked about. The pagoda dogwood is looking, this one is looking better than the other one. The other one is, ironically, this one is in late day sun and the other one is in morning sun. And so it's interesting to me that the other one was struggling a little bit with some wilt, but it seems to have sorted itself out a little bit. Maybe it just had a rougher transition. The clethra, I've got 2 varieties here, 16 candles and hummingbird. The hummingbird is shorter, so it's in the front, but all of the clethra is putting some flowers on, and actually I think it's going to be really beautiful, and it's looking quite happy. These are the Cupricina, is that what it is? Cupricina, Cypressina, Norway spruces. And I have to take a look at the before pictures, but I'm pretty sure those big shoots on the top were not there when we got them. So they are already putting on growth, which is not surprising to me. Norway spruces grow fast here. These should, I mean, these are like a 25-foot tree. They only get 6 feet wide. So again, this is a tall, skinny barrier that we planted here. And again, this is a trench area here. This is the drainage for our driveway. So this area is intentionally lower, and that's why I've got the clethra in there, because the clethra will appreciate the extra water. But those are looking very happy. I'm pretty sure there's some birds who have already started nesting in there. I see birds going in and out of there all the time. This is the Cornus moss. It's also looking good. I will show you the other Cornus moss we bought and planted in 2020. And that one was smaller when we got it, and it is looking so good. So I'm very excited to see how this one grows. And remember, these start going vertical and then they go very horizontal. So that should do a pretty good job of screening the cottage that is now in its home. The cottage has been moved and it is in its home. So this is the Cornus moss that we planted in 2020. It was probably a foot or 2 smaller than the one we bought this year. So you can see how much growth this has put on. This thing is, I don't know, 8 feet tall maybe now. Really big leaves on it, nice big foliage on it, bloomed really well this year. And when I take you around to this side, you will see we are starting to get some branches on this side that are starting to do this more horizontal growth. So I think we're at this point where we are starting to get that horizontal growth. Now this is very shrub looking at this point, and what I will do, and you can see that I did it a little bit last year, but I am going to start limbing this up just a little bit, just clearing out some of that foliage, maybe 2 feet for now. I mean, not a lot, just so that this has more of a tree appearance. But I can't tell you how much this thing has really come into its own, and it puts on, I mean, I would say we're putting on a foot of growth at least a year, if not more. Now we get to the first shrubs that I added after that video, and this is a deutzia, and this is Yuki Snowflake. Here's the tag for that. So this came up quite a bit this one came up quite a few times in the comments, and I've grown deutzias before, and honestly they haven't really blown me away. But when I was shopping, I realized I needed something with a little bit finer foliage, and this certainly has that. So I've put 3 of these on either side of the grouping of the soft serve Campsiporus. So this area between the 3 soft serves is going to be planted with Geranium macrorhizum. You can see some in there. I had transplanted some there. There was some misunderstanding when things were mulched, so we lost a few. I've got plenty to divide. I also ordered some plugs. I might just plop plugs in there because at this point it's just easier and faster for me to do that. But this area is not planted with anything because I want to keep a low ground cover there, and that's going to be Geranium macrorhizum. Back here we've got the first of the the second of the Fire Spire hornbeams. They are showing a few signs of stress. There's some color change at the tips. Maybe that's just new growth. I mean, listen, if these plants weren't a little bit stressed, I'd be shocked. I will say the winterberry here is looking a little peaked. So I got to check to see what's going on with that. These 3 are, this is berry poppins, and they're all looking a little, I mean, I don't know, it could be chlorosis, it could be too much water, it could be not enough water. I'm not gonna like overreact here, it could just be stress. This is Mr. Poppins, which is the pollinator, and he's nice and green over here. So I don't know, we'll see what's going on with that. Of all the trees, I've been most worried about the Swiss stone pine, which is the one that I love the most. So of course that would be the one that's struggling a little bit. We do have some interior needle dieback here. So, you know, that could be natural, in some trees that is, but I actually think that's a drought reaction or a stress reaction. So I've been trying to give this guy some extra attention. He's my favorite, so we want him to be very happy. Now we've got a grouping of plants 100% influenced by you guys. This is Fothergilla, Legend of the Small. This is the smaller one. And, you know, I've always liked Fothergilla. I tried to grow it once before, did not have luck with it. I think I had it in way too much shade. But I really like the blue color of the foliage. There's some purple color in there too. I'm really, really happy with these. Now this one here, let me grab the tag. Again, we left the tags on. I hope you can see this. The sun is pretty brutal right now. So this is a smaller one. It's really the only one I could have fit in this area, I think. And this is 2 to 2.5 tall and 2 to 3 wide is the size on this. And of course we're gonna get really nice fall color with this, and we obviously missed the flowers for this year because it's a pretty early bloomer, little like bottle brush type flowers on it. And you know, Fothergilla has been on my radar, but I do think it's one of those things that if someone hadn't brought it up, I might have kind of, you know, zoned that one out. So I'm just thrilled with I mean, this is all about foliage for me here. And I just think the foliage on those is so good, especially with the contrast. I think it looks really good in this area with the deutzia. quite happy with that. In the back, we've got another grouping of 3 of the boxwoods there. FYI, just so you guys know what's happening back here. If you see this stake here, this is where they're going to grow grass over there and make this into angle parking for bigger parties or when they have bigger groups here. But their intention is to plant, they really like Nepeta, and they're going to plant sort of Nepeta along the edge there. So that's all them to manage over there. There's a lot of work left to be done, but they will be planting Nepeta, and then that will grow along some sort of border, I guess, and then along the grass. So that's what they're doing over there. So when you see that sort of empty space there, that's the future plan for that. There's a lot of leveling and grading and all kinds of things that need to happen before that can happen though. So 3 more of the Skylight Better Boxwoods right there. Now I want to show you a very special arrival in the front here. Do you guys remember the Midnight Sun weigela that I planted in the circle garden that did not look like the rest of the Midnight Sun weigela? Well, I freaked out. I bought 3 more for over there because I was shopping and I saw 3 that looked right, and I'm like, you know what, I need to fill in the area over between us and the neighbors anyway, so I'm gonna move these 3 weigela that are questionable over here, and that way it doesn't matter so much what they are. But let me show you what they're looking like. So here's what they're looking like now. They're settled in over here. They seem pretty happy, and sure as heck, you guys, they are definitely Midnight Sun, because look at those leaves. So they were just a little out of sorts, I think. Let me show you, we'll quickly run over to the other garden so I can show you the new ones so you can see that these are definitely the same thing. Because you can see the foliage has gotten darker and the leaves have gotten much bigger. That one is struggling a little bit still, but this one clearly is Midnight Sun. Here's the circle garden. I need to come in and tame the Gara a little bit. It's overrunning the Midnight Sun a little bit, but this is one of the ones that I replaced, as is this. But you can see that these are, oopsies, my shadow's in the way there. You can see that these are all looking the same as the rest of them in here. So this is what Midnight Sun is supposed to look like, and those other ones are definitely turning into that. So it was Midnight Sun, but I'm not disappointed that I did that because I'm happy to have those over there. So here we have 3 Glow Girl Spireas. So you guys, I was all set to get Double Play Doozy Spirea. I had just watched the Proven Winners Color Choice Shrub podcast. They have a video form on YouTube. And the featured plant was Double Play Doozy. And I'm like, that is such a good plant. And then I went to the nursery and I saw Glow Girl. And you guys, I had to have it. My 2 favorite Spireas by far are Double Play Blue Kazoo and Glow Girl. And Glow Girl is a birch leaf Spirea, and it gets amazing color, like basically all year it has amazing color, white flowers on it, but really the foliage color is just fabulous. And I just liked it better than Double Play Doozy. Also, Double Play Doozy, I mean, similar size, that size would have been okay there, but I just had to have my Glow Girl. Speaking of which, I did think hard about Double Play Blue Kazoo, which several people mentioned, but I have 4 of those, one of which I just pruned post-flowering, and I measured it before I pruned it. It was almost 6 feet wide and approaching 4 feet tall. And those are supposed to be, those are ones that they say are 2 to 3 tall and wide, I think, or roughly 3 tall and wide. And it was huge. And I could not, that would have been way too big for this area. So I didn't want to deal with that. Plus, I already have the Blue Kazoo, although I already have Glow Girl too, but only one of them. And you know, this was an opportunity for me to try some shrubs that I don't have. It's nice to grow some different things. So Blue Kazoo was in the running. And then once I found the Legends of the Small and brought in the blue foliage with that, I thought, okay, we've got that blue color here. So now we can go with the sort of limier green of the Glow Girl. Of all the plants in this planting, only one has been nipped by deer. And that is this pagoda dogwood. Now I have been spraying these with deer repellent, and I do have other pagoda dogwoods. And I know that if they are left unsprayed, they will go after them, but in time, as that as it hardens off, they don't care to eat them anymore, but you do have to protect them, especially when they are right at deer mouth height. So we did have a little bit of deer browse on here. I mean, you can see the rough edges here, but nothing that changed the shape. It was just sort of, I don't think they like it. I think they were just taste testing the ends. So this is the one thing that we've had a little bit of deer browse on. And so I just keep up on the spraying. And this is the one that we've been having more problems with wilting on, but you can see now it's popped back. I think it's settled in finally now. Back here in this corner, we've got 3 more of the better boxwoods, which now right now, you guys, this is temporary stuff right here. Like they're selling the hot tub and they've got their outdoor shower over here temporarily while they get everything else done. So that stuff is not going to be there, but there is a shed beyond that. So these 3 should grow up tall and actually provide, you know, some screening from, and I don't know what else they have planned for this area. So that will provide some screening there. A lot of you mentioned evergreen interest over here, and this is the only evergreen shrub I put in. This is a bird's nest spruce, pretty ordinary evergreen shrub. And I just want to quickly make a comment about the evergreen shrub thing. Great idea to put evergreen shrubs in. There probably should be more, but here's my thinking on this. Evergreen shrubs are really challenging, I think, to work into a planting because they tend to grow very slowly. And then, so you have to decide like what size of this shrub are you planning for? Because if you're planning for the full size, you're going to be waiting 15 years for that to happen. So 15 years, there's a good chance I'm not going to be here anymore. I mean, at this house, that could happen. We don't know what will happen, but that could happen. So I'm not planting for 15 years from now. The other thing is that if you get into like more interesting varieties, because there's some very cool evergreen shrubs out there, they are incredibly expensive. I mean, I looked at another, I don't know what it was, maybe like one of the mugo pine varieties that's actually does stay small. Like dwarf mugo pine does not stay small, but there are some newer ones that do. And I looked at some of those, I mean, we were looking at $130. This was a $30 shrub. Those were $130. And a lot of these things, depending on what variety they are, you can't effectively prune these to keep these at a specific size because they just don't look right or grow right. So that's why I didn't go with more evergreens, because I didn't want to start with super small plants. I didn't want to have to wait for them to reach a huge size. And so if I plant too close to them and they get enormous, then you're ripping them out. So you wait 15 years, they finally get to the size you want them to, and then 5 years later you got to rip them out. So that's why I didn't. Plus also the cost situation. I just didn't feel like that was worth it. Listen, like I said, there will be opportunities to make adjustments here, and that might be an adjustment that I make. But for now, that's the reason why there is only one evergreen shrub in this entire planting. Also, keep in mind, it's Wisconsin, it's winter. Screening isn't as important in winter here because like we don't sit outside a lot, and it's fine, you know, so that's part of it. Beyond that, of course, I think you've seen this before. This is one of the incredible hydrangeas that I had growing on the east side that I transplanted over here. This one has had a rough time with the transplant. I need to go in there and do some pruning because there are some bits that definitely, like, obviously, there's some unhappiness here. So I need to do a little bit of pruning, but it's perked up now. It just had I transplanted this one much later, well, 2 weeks later than I transplanted the other one. And it suffered for it. It was later than I should have transplanted. This one was a chunk of that just naturally broke off, so I ended up with 3 actually. In the front here is Aronia. Which one is this? Let's get the tag. Okay, this is Aronia Lowscape Mound, and size on this is pretty small, I think. 1 to 2 tall and 2 feet wide. Aronia was not what I went for. I actually was going to plant this all up in more deutzia. And then I saw these shiny leaves and I was in love. One of the things I realized is that up here in the colder zones, we don't have a lot of shiny leaf plants. Like, warmer zones can grow things like, big leaf magnolias and stuff. We don't have that here. There are not a lot of shrubs with nice shiny leaves. So when I saw this, I thought, gotta have it. So, I mean, like everything else here, I'm mostly growing these things for foliage, although they will have other foliage interest or flowers at some point, of course. But I saw that shiny foliage, and even though these were like way more expensive than the Deutzia, like twice as much, I don't know why, I bought these because I needed that shiny foliage. And then the last thing we have down here, and this isn't really, I don't necessarily consider everything from here on out to be part of this privacy area. This was, oh, you know, there was always something here. So in here, I've planted 3, I guess we do have some more evergreen interest now that I think about it, 3 Russian cypresses. The botanical name for Russian cypress is microbiota, which I think sounds like a disease. Anyway, it's a great plant, and I do have it growing in another place in the garden. What it is a fabulous evergreen cover for full sun to full shade. Now these are this is definitely, you know, I would say part sun, part shade here, whatever. And I think they're gonna do really well here. The size that they give on these is 12 inches tall by 3 to 4 feet wide, and zones 2 to 6. So definitely meant for us colder people. And really just covers everything really well. It provides a great weed barrier, but also it just fills in an area. And this was an area that I needed to fill in because I can't plant too close to that maple tree, obviously, because there's roots there and you don't want to do anything to damage that tree. So this I thought would be a great way to just have these just fill in this area. And this is something I might add more of. I mean, I feel like if you're going to grow a ground cover in a low maintenance area, something like an evergreen ground cover that you never have to touch is a pretty good idea. And then the last thing that's sort of in here that wasn't here before is that last Incredible hydrangea, and that one is obviously looking better than the other one. It's in a little bit less light than the other one too, although up here I don't find that the Incredibles are just fine in full sun to, you know, part sun, so I don't see it being an issue. One of the suggestions that came up time and time again that I think is a great suggestion was adding in ornamental grasses. I think that would have been beautiful. They would provide some nice screening. They would certainly provide movement, which would be lovely in here. But I'll tell you why I didn't put them in here. Because even though ornamental grasses are very low maintenance in that all you do is cut them back once a year, basically, it's maintenance. And I am going for as close to maintenance free in this area as possible. And mainly that's because while I'm tending this area now, like I said, I might not be here forever. And I don't want this area to go to pot because something didn't get maintained or create more work for somebody who might be a future owner of our home, or more than likely the owner, my neighbors, because if there's work, people tend to go, I don't want to do that. And then they decide they're going to rip it out. And when people rip things out, they tend to rip things out a lot. And I don't want to see that happen to this area. So we could add, we might add something like that in the future. And maybe what I would do is, if I ever left this area, would be rip out grasses before I left, or whatever, talk to the neighbors about it or whatever. But I'm very cognizant of, I promised low maintenance for this. It was one of the selling points for the neighbors when we planted a lot of plants on their property. And I want to stick to that, not just for me, because as you guys know, I'm trying to cut back on my maintenance requirements, but also for future owners of these 2 homes, because I just don't, there was a lot of thought that went into this, and I don't want to see this all demolished because someone gets mad that they have to go cut off grasses once a year. You never know. So we'll see. As I said, things will change. I'm positive of that. You never know what's going to happen in these spaces. But I feel very good that this is planted. We've hooked up irrigation. We've mulched with the wood chips that came from the trees that were here, sort of a nice circle there. I did make a little video when I hooked up the irrigation, which is going to be a short. So if that's up, I will link to that. And if it's not, just look for that on shorts. The one thing I'm lacking in here is, like, there's some tall shrubs I wanted to put in here, and I just couldn't figure out a place where that would go. That could like, I maybe should have done a tall shrub instead of the pagoda dogwood down on this end, because I think that would have maybe that would have been a better way to work in some of these tall shrubs. So a couple of things that I'm really interested in is I'd love to get a beautyberry in there, a calicarpa. Suddenly I'm finding those difficult to find. I don't know, they were really popular in my area 2 years ago, and now none of the nurseries have them. I was also looking at a calicantha, a sweet shrub. Now people are selling those here, but like Aphrodite is only hardy to 5B, which is my zone. That's really pushing it for me for an investment piece. I'd like to see things that are, at least a 5A, if not a 4. That would make me feel better. But those are beautiful. Also, I love buttonbush. I think that would have been a great idea in there. A lot of people recommended 9-barks, and I sort of decided I don't think I like 9-barks. I don't know what's wrong with me, you guys. I have one. It doesn't do much for me. You've never seen it because it doesn't do much for me, but maybe it's because I'm not paying attention to it. I do like ginger wine 9-bark. It's a pretty spectacular plant. Maybe in the future, if I was adding something and had the opportunity to do that, I would add one of those plants that I just mentioned, because some of those are really cool, and it's a great spot to put something, if I had the room, to put something big there. Thank you for your amazing shrub suggestions. All the shrubs I added were mentioned by at least one person. Definitely took inspiration from all of you. And again, you guys, if you're looking for shrubs, go through that, because people didn't just name shrubs, they also said why they like them, which is really helpful, like what's so special about them, and people said that. All right, thank you for following along on this project. We'll update. I think in fall we're gonna have a really good color show, so we'll definitely show it to you then, if not before. All right, have a great day in your garden. Thanks for your suggestions. We'll see you soon.